Beautiful. So that's not where we're starting. Here's where we're starting. Right now, since we know Mash, it doesn't work with UDIMs, what I've gone ahead and done is I have split up the geometry, and I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more splitting. I split up the geometry and materials based on where they need to be. So, for example, I have the shirt skin, which actually, if I go ahead and let's run you through what I've got going on right now. When you get the install file, I'm still figuring out what the heck I'm doing with the hair, so we're just gonna ignore that for the time being by hiding all of it, right? I have to figure out if I'm gonna make that one piece of geometry and if the wrap is gonna work that way or if it won't. So right now we're just going to hide all of our repro meshes. And what we've got right now is we have a shirt that is one-sided. I cut out the inside because we don't want to have all these intersecting faces. It's going to make our transmission depth have to go way, way, way high. And that's also what got us those weird kind of craggly effects on the test render. Someone has asked the question in chat. I am recording. I'm not the host. I'm recording on OBS. You're good. So I hollowed it out. We don't have any more back faces. This mesh is going to be hidden anyways. That's why it doesn't matter. However, it still needs the material on it for the cards to be able to take the notes. So that's the shirt. And then if we select the hands, you'll note that it is just the hands. There's a little bit that goes into the shirt so that we have the overlap, which is great. We like that. Likewise, the head is just the head. We have the space for the overlap. So with that being in mind, you can see we have the hands, the shirt, and the skirt, or the shirt and the skirt. So let's go ahead and start with the head, since I feel like that'll be the easiest place to go, and I have to take you guys off my screen so that I can see everything. First we're going to do is we're going to start off by making a plane. This is just going to be a regular four-sided plane. If you check your inputs, that's no subdivisions whatsoever. What we're going to want to do is we will call this HS for heartstrings, and we'll call it brush stroke, BRSK underscore, and so this is going to be my fourth brush stroke. I'm going to call it 4. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to select 4, go to our mashing options, and we're going to hit this button here. Alternatively, if you already have the Mash button open, you can go ahead and click Create Mash Networks. If you would like to bring up the Mash editor, you just go ahead and click this button here. Additionally, the Mash editor is a little buggy sometimes, and so it may not update all of your notes that you have applied. In order to refresh this, again, go ahead and click here. Now, something you may notice is now we just have this big old plane, this big old line of cards, and that is not what we want. So let's go ahead and select the distribute node. You'll notice we can have multiple options. We are going to set this to mesh. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to find our head, so we can see GOC head. I should probably call this head skin. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call it head skin. A skin is anything that gets wrapped to something else in order to move. So select your distribute node again, then face center. It's going to give you an error where you see input mesh. Go ahead and middle mouse click, drag, drop into the dialog box. This is going to create a connection. Wonderful. You'll notice, hey look, it's all stuck across my nose. That's what we want. We're going to use the up vector. That means it's going to follow the edge flow of our beautifully sculpted and retopologized character, and we're going to move it to 0.03, so there isn't 0.02, so there isn't as much intersecting. Then we go to face edge settings. We click enable scaling. This is why we went ahead and we added all this fun extra high poly stuff and got rid of the hyper high poly area like the seams here. Otherwise, you would get some really tiny shit, and we want them all to be relatively evenly square. Click Flood Mesh. You'll notice now that she's become a cyborg, like an android or something, which is fine. Enable scaling. We're actually going to want this to be at least 2.5. And for the time being, let's go ahead add a color node. So to do that, you click up here. Let's name this. We should have done that first. A little out of it. My apologies. We're going to call this Skin Head. Because it is still a skin mesh network. It's just applying to the head. Any pun that could be made is not going to be made. Wow, I'm going to mute that in the recording because that is loud. Let's go color, add color node, and now you'll see it is just gone sheet white. Remember when we wanted those skins? I still preserved the UVs when I cut off all the extra bits and bobs. So, same thing. Middle mouse, head skin, drop it in there. It's going to say, yep, cool, that's connected. Now, This color is where it gets a little interesting. If you don't have the install file, which, spoiler alert, all of you are going to have the install file, but let's say you were doing this from scratch, you would want to make sure that you have all of your textures named. I've gone ahead and named all of my textures for myself already, so I know that, for example, file 8 is actually the file that gives me the skin for the head, so you drag and you drop that onto the color box. Now, you'll probably notice that there is a name here. We're going to call this skin, and then we're going to call this head. This is how we know what the color set name is, and while I am thinking of it, let's get our repro mesh set up. The repro mesh gets created automatically, and it's set down here, so let's go ahead and uncheck opaque, and we want to uncheck everything except for primary visibility. Then we go down to export, see where it says export vertex colors, click to turn that home skillet on. Now that it is on, we're good to go. Let's give it a material. We're going to assign an AI standard surface. We're going to drop our specular, open our geometry. We're going to ignore the color. Yes, we're ignoring the color because we need to give this a proper name. This is easy. We call it HS because it's heartstrings. We call it ALI because we're on ALI. We call it MASH because we're on MASH. What are we mashing? Well, it's simple. We're mashing the skin head, and what specifically on it? We're doing the brush strokes. Boom. So we've got heartstrings, ALI, MASH, skin head strokes. Easy, done. Now we want to open our hypershade. That's my render view, my hypershade. And we're going to go to materials, and we're going to find it. So we see MASH hair, MASH shirt strokes, MASH shirt, skin hands, skin head strokes. Awesome. Then we click this box right here. Boom. No problemo. What we're going to want to do, tab, color, nope, user color data. Yeah, user data color, boom. And then remember the color set name. We're going to call it color set skin head. Let's double check that that is correct. By doing so, we would select the color node here. We can see color set skin head. We're just going to copy that just in case. Click, click, paste. Ooh, not twice. Cool. So we did have it correct. And then we just take this out color, plug it into our base color. And now you're like, okay, this is all well and good. It's going to be picking up our colors, right? And just go over here. It's like, cool, it's picking up colors now, but it is genuinely frightening. And I don't blame you for thinking that. It's because we haven't applied the brush stroke yet. So, again, if you didn't have this all set up already, you would have to go to your opacity, and then under geometry, you would drop a file. I already have that figured out. So I'm going to drag in brush stroke 2, middle mouse, drag and drop it. And I'm going to open up, I'm a fool and a fiend. Oh no. Oh, I double messed up. Hang on. Select this, select that, good to go. Fixed it, no problem whatsoever. Middle mouse, drop it onto the opacity box in the attribute editor. Hello? There we go. And then it shows up. Cool. Clean. That's just the same thing as placing a file texture again, but you know what? Why keep adding file textures when I already have one? That also gives us the easier time of going over to utilities, which is where we have our facing ratio, which we want to be the same across the entire character. This is what determines whether or not the cards are being displayed when they're facing the camera. So I'm going to middle mouse drag AI facing ratio in here. And then what I would need to do is I would need to multiply it across with my brush. But again, I already have that set up, so I'm just going to drag it in here. And since these are the same two nodes that I've been using in everything else, I don't have to worry about it. I can middle mouse drag that into the opacity over there. Bada bing, bada boom, we're sorted, get it all lined up nice and pretty like. We bring our render view back open, we hit play. And then you're like, wow, okay, so it's not covering up the entire sides of her face, it's kind of showing around the edges. That still looks gumpy as heck. I can very clearly see where the edges are, and to that I say you are valid. And we're going to add a random. Add the random noise. Cool. see what I was saying earlier, sometimes this doesn't update. Just hit this button again, it updated. Going to take our position on down to 0. We don't want it to be exploding. And then we're going to set this rotation on Y to 360. However, after we switch the transformation space to world, what this is going to do is it's going to randomly choose what rotation between 0 and 360 that any of these planes on the repr mesh can have. Whew. And I think that covers everything. And then basically it's just a matter of choosing what you want individual shapes to look like and like how you want it to be branching off of itself. So like I probably wouldn't want any clipping through the eyebrows, so I'd go in the component mode and I would remove the cards from around the eyebrows. If we wanted to increase, the size of our shapes, we would go into the distribute node where we had the face edge settings, enable scaling, and we'd put it at like 5. And you can see it gets bigger and you have these larger, fuzzier strokes that come off of the model a little bit more, but also interfere a little bit more with the rest of the brush strokes. So there's some give and take that you've got to play with going on over there. So for the time being, I'm just going to set this to 3.5 and I'll tinker with it more. But that's how you would set up a mesh network from scratch by hand. And you'll note that as we rotate, we saw that there were cards right over here, but now we don't see them anymore, and we see them appearing over on this side, and as we rotate up, you can see it appears out over and around here. If we're not happy with how far out those are pushing, we can set it to 0.01, and we can see that it sticks a lot more closely to the surface, or if we don't want it at all, we can just set it to 0, and then it literally, I'm rotating in the wrong area, and then literally just sticks to the surface, and you don't see them floating away, which honestly, I think I kind of prefer. I've been doing the push up vector the whole time, but I think I prefer it just sitting on the surface. Y'all can chime in and tell me what you think. At this time, I'm gonna stop recording though, because that's the end of the tutorial.